The worst mayor in the state of Minnesota is the interim mayor for Isanti, Minnesota, Luke Merrill. He is a horrible racist, a super misogynist, and terrible to the LGBTQ folks of the community that he serves. He recently, in response to a comment I made comparing ICE to the Gestapo, said, "Pushback from mentally handicapped and unstable morons, sure. Probably the same type of people that Hitler had a problem with in the first place. Poison to society." I believe he is incredibly wrong for Isanti and an even worse representation of what we believe in as Minnesotans. Luke got his seat as the mayor not after an election. He got it after the person before him, Jimmy Gordon, was appointed to the Minnesota House of Representatives for District 28A. He also shares very extreme right-wing views with Luke, and I believe that's part of the reason that Luke got appointed. Of the people on the council, some of the things that Jimmy has on his campaign page talk about how he is looking for limited government, parental rights in education, and is pro-life when it comes to abortion policy. Luke agrees with many of Jimmy's right-wing policies, and on his own campaign page says things about protecting children from woke nonsense. Work ethic needs improvement, and then in parentheses says, "I don't believe in people leeching off the system and promoting laziness." He also believes government shouldn't tell you that you should get a vaccine or any other decision that you make about your health, but we also shouldn't fund it. He previously has talked about how his perspective on things around LGBT issues are that LGBT stuff is being indoctrinated to children, or children are victims of indoctrination, and especially trans people who he repeatedly calls mentally ill and treats with extreme hate. He misrepresented, either purposefully or because he does not understand pronouns, he misrepresented a law talking about how third graders need to be able to understand how to use gender pronouns in sentences. This is obviously nonsense because pronouns are something that all of us use in writing and in grammar and in our day-to-day lives, and third graders need to be able to understand that. A kid needs to be able to understand how to write "he or she did X, Y, or Z" in the context of writing, things like that. But Luke purposely misconstrues this so that it looks like woke indoctrination, which just leads to more hate. And I don't know if he does this intentionally or if he does this because he just doesn't understand it. In addition to this, I personally did sit down with him and talk to him for about an hour and a half, and I appreciate him sitting down with me. However, during this, he did talk about some of his more conspiratorial perspectives, including that he believes vaccines are caused by autism, or can cause autism.
Information for 55 years. Well, in 55 years, almost everybody that got vaxxed is going to be dead. So there's too many things, and Fauci has now admitted to a lot of things. The government has revealed a lot of information. That's like one of those things, is like you see this stuff and just in your mind, it's like that just doesn't add up, Mm-hmm. And I think there's conspiracy theories that are just crazy, out of this world. Like probably not, but there's some where it's like maybe that has some value, And I think there's going to be a lot more coming out. Like there's been actually studies as of late now that show that vaccines can cause autism, But there's a lot in the past that haven't. But there have been studies, yes. Yep.
Vaccines don't cause autism.
Well, there's been studies now that are coming out that show this. Now, whether it's going to be true or not, but you just have to think about things and think, well, maybe there's some value to some of them, but definitely not all of them. You know what I mean?
Yeah. But vaccines don't cause autism.
Well, I can show you a screenshot of a study today that I just read. No. But yeah.
And he then, in response to that, sent me screenshots of an Instagram post that he did as his proof, and explained that was his source, was a screenshot of an Instagram post explaining that vaccines cause autism. And then when I pushed back on that and I sent him things talking about how vaccines don't cause autism, and there's countless studies to show that, including things from the CDC, from the Mayo Clinic, and other reputable institutions, he says, well, Big Pharma's influence. Big Pharma's making money off of Big Pharma, which Admittedly, yes, they are, but that doesn't mean that vaccines are causing autism. They're not. That's been shown that that's not the case. And then he ends up being extremely rude to those people who are part of the autism community and makes them look like they are some sort of mental illness and something that's completely wrong with them. There was also a text chain that was released of one of his female friends talking to him about how she felt like one of their male friends had potentially raped her. This was shown on the Minnesota subreddit, and it had a lot of traction on there, and it was shown in our local community pages. And in those texts, Luke doesn't actually validate the person who's feeling like they might have been raped and talking about how they are potentially a victim. He defends his male friend and talks about how, oh, I know them. They would never do that. And they would never do that. Even though the woman in the text talks about how she doesn't remember giving consent and was drunk. And if you're drunk, you can't give consent anyways. So he is incredibly misogynistic and doesn't support potential victims of rape. In addition to things like this, he's also incredibly racist and has talked in community pages about how he doesn't believe racism is real. He believes it's some people's perception, or that it is real, but everyone gets talked to bad. Everyone gets poor comments made about them. He also has used the N-word, and that has been shown in previous conversations, screenshots that have then also been posted to the Minnesota Reddit. So he is also somebody who is incredibly racist and has shown that countless times. On a different note, his policy perspective is that he believes government should be smaller and that there shouldn't be as much government spending. The main issue with this ends up being that because of that, it leads to the perspective that government is, like, you'll never get to a government point where it's small enough for him. He'll always want to keep cutting. He'll always want to do this. I reached out to him and I sent him a message on his mayor page about this, which he never responded to, because also if you keep continually cutting government programs, it leads to issues where there aren't amenities in the town and there aren't things like programs that help lift up the community and help people gain better lives and have better resources if they need help, because you're continually cutting programs. It'll lead to budgetary crises. Because of these reasons, I believe he's a terrible decision for the town of Isanti, and that's why I'm supporting Jeff Johnson for Isanti mayor. He has repeatedly shown to be a better option. He posts things that are respectful for the community. He has shared about all the women in his life that he appreciates and he loves, and he's done things to help lift up the community. In his previous term as mayor, before Jimmy, the one who appointed Luke, he's tried to put programs in place that help the community and add more incentives for people to want to live in this town, because he seems to actually truly care about this town and the people in it. I also sat down with Jeff, and I really appreciate him doing that with me. I will be supporting Jeff for those reasons, even though I cannot vote in this election because it's out of my district, or I'm outside of the city limits. I believe Jeff Johnson is a much better candidate for this town, who definitely supports the values of the small town and caring for your neighbor and helping people who need a hand. If your neighbor needs a hand, you go out and you'll give them a hand working on something. Or if they have some sort of crisis, you can give them a hand. You can bring them some sort of food and things like that. I don't believe Luke thinks that. I think Luke is somebody who would help you if you fall under certain groups or if you are part of certain communities. I don't think he'll help his trans neighbor. I don't think he cares about them. I don't think he would help a lesbian couple. I don't think he would help some racial minorities who are feeling like they are at the bad end of racism in the community, or if they are being harassed by other people. I don't think he'd help them. I think he would just be a bystander, and I think he would help only people who are in his in-group. I believe Luke is wrong for the city. And Luke, if you're watching, you told me you wanted me to get involved in politics, and you told me you wanted me to be a part of this, and you think I'd be a great mind to have, and that you want different perspectives. This is me getting involved. I don't think you're right for the city. I think you are the worst mayor in the city or the worst mayor that I've ever seen in the city of Isanti, and I think you are the worst mayor in the state. And I hope you lose come August. I do not support you. I think you're a terrible cancer to this town. Thank you for watching.